What's happening, everybody? Trey here, joined as always by my dad Sean, and today, Reactions to the Classics, we're going to be taking a look at Neil Young's On the Beach record. This comes courtesy of a suggestion from our patron Carl, so thank you, Carl. As always, we recently did a review of Harvest. Got a lot of Neil Young up on the channel here.
Yeah, and if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up sign. Also, hit that big red subscribe button. Album reviews, song reactions, live streams, you name it, Trey. We upload content every single day. We also have a podcast, Reactions to the Classics Music Podcast. Go search for that wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you are interested in becoming a patron, check out the link below. Also, check out our Instagram and our Facebook groups. Trey, this was his 5th studio album, released in July of 1974, was recorded after but released before Tonight's the Night, so kind of a weird deal there. Shares some of that album's bleakness and crude production, which came as a shock to critics and fans alike because it was following up, as you already mentioned, the highly successful, kind of polished Harvest. It was not a commercial or critical success at the time of its release, but over time has attained a higher regard from fans and critics alike. It was recorded in a haphazard manner. Neil would utilize a variety of session musicians, often changing their instruments while offering only bare bones arrangements for them to follow. He would also opt for rough mixes, which would really tick off his engineers because they wanted to polish it up, and he said, who cares?
Yeah, and this has a very mellow vibe throughout the record.
It does.
And some of the musicians have said that's in part due to the honey slides they had, which was a goop of sauteed marijuana and honey. So, shout out to them, man.
Yeah, I guess so, man. I guess they were,
And this record was not easily and readily available really until 2003. It was hard to find on vinyl. They released it on cassette, but besides that, this and a few of his mid-80s records were just kind of out of stock, and it kind of got cult-like status due to that fact.
Yeah, it's kind of weird now for us, in 2020 to think about that you couldn't get your hands on an album or cassette or CD or whatever it was at the time you were trying to do it, with the world of streaming music, where we can literally dial up
any song you
want and it's there. So I found that to be odd. There's another little odd thing I'll get into right before we jump into the songs. The track listing. The producer David Briggs convinced Neil at the last second to flip side 1 and side 2 from what Neil originally wanted. So he did it for the vinyl, and it's in that order if you go to Spotify and look at it and listen to it. But on the cassette, Neil got him to flip it back into the proper order that he wanted.
Yeah.
So that's what we're gonna do. That's what Carl wanted us to do, who we're doing this album for. And it seems like the right thing to do because that's what the artist wanted.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it honestly does flow a little better if you do it like that.
I think it does too. I think it's really odd that he would have flipped it that David Briggs wanted him to. So we're gonna start off with the title track, On the Beach. There's only 3 songs on this side, so they're all longer songs. So first up is the title track, On the Beach, almost 7 minutes long. Graham Nash is on here playing a Wurlitzer electric piano.
We have a lot of great features on this entire record.
Yeah, people just dropping by and checking it out. It's kind of a bluesy rendition of the trappings of fame and fortune, which he covered some on Harvest. He kind of had a love-hate relationship with it. You want to be successful, you want to have the acclaim, you want to have the money, but there's a real downside to that because there's a lot of pressure on you. Can't go anywhere, people are mobbing you, so it's kind of the back and forth on that. And then he's talking kind of about the problems that he has.
Yeah, and one of the lines that I really enjoy from this record and this song is he says, "Though my problems are meaningless, that don't make them go away."
Yeah, because he's probably thinking, I think he's thinking that, well, I have all this money and fame, and people are going to be like, what do you got to worry about, dude? I'm trying to worry where my next meal's coming from. So an interesting way to start the album, just because it sets that tone, man, that kind of chilled, melancholy vibe.
A lot of dreariness kind of in each verse, which I enjoyed. This was one of my favorite guitar performances by Neil. We have the great guitar work on Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere, especially on the song Cowgirl in the Sand. This is a little different though. You mentioned it is a little bluesy, or a lot more kind of emotional, I think. So I respected that from Neil, really enjoyed that, and I think it just goes with the idea that we all kind of think when stuff ain't going our way that the grass is going to be greener, on the other side, whether you're Neil Young and at the top of the world, or whether you're, lower class thinking, oh man, if only I had this or that. We all like to look for the better in life, I think.
Yeah, and then I think the shock that comes for all of us, that horrible realization when you get to the other side and go, oh man, this isn't any better. I got the same problems and issues. So now what am I going to do? Like this thing that was idealized in my life, I've reached it and I'm not any happier. And I think that's kind of not only what Neil deals with, but a lot of music stars deal with it, especially back in the 60s and 70s. A lot of material was kind of dove into this. That's going to take us to the next track, Motion Pictures. And he wrote this about his relationship with the actress Carrie Snodgrass. Again, super chilled, mainly acoustic. We got some harmonica on this one. I thought it was a fine song. I thought it fit with the ambiance of the first song.
Yeah, it continues that personal nature.
Yes.
He notes that, well, all those people, they think they got it made, but I wouldn't buy, sell, borrow, or trade anything I have to be like one of them.
Yeah.
He also knows I'm deep inside myself, but I'll get out somehow. Again, continues that melancholy tone, and he sounds a bit rugged, a bit worn out, and
which goes back to that mixing I was talking about in the beginning. He didn't care, just throw it on there, man. Let's do it.
Exactly, which I think adds a bit of a charm to this record, and
Agreed.
he really does get a lot more personal than a lot of other work that we've heard from him up to this point. I'm with you, not a favorite for me, especially with the title track that was before, and then the song that we have after this, the longest song on the record.
Yeah, almost 9 minutes, man.
Ambulance Blues, one of the longest songs we've heard from Neil.
Yes.
And this one, again, sound like a broken record, has a very melancholy, chilled out, as I mentioned at the start. Maybe those honey sides were kicking in.
Oh, you know what that could be? Maybe that's why everything's chilled. This one explores his feelings about his critics. Got Richard Nixon in there. The state of Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. It references the Riverboat, which is a small coffee house in Toronto's Yorkville neighborhood, which was an early venue for folk-inspired artists like Gordon Lightfoot, got one of his albums up on the channel. Joni Mitchell got one of hers. Simon and Garfunkel, Arlo Guthrie. And then the line, oh Isabella, proud Isabella, they tore you down and plowed you under, references 88 Isabella Street, an old rooming house in Toronto where Neil stayed for a while.
Yeah, this also has a bit of a unique instrumentation. We got the harmonica and the fiddle, which again add to this bit of a homegrown organic sound. I think that especially this side of the record had. My favorite portion was the part where he talked about pissing in the wind.
Yes.
And that we all need that friend to tell us, hey man, you gotta change your stuff because you're pissing in the wind, essentially.
But a rich guy and a famous guy can't find that easily because everybody hero worships them and doesn't tell them anything, just tells them how great they are. That would have to suck as well.
Oh, absolutely. For me, I thought he had a lot of insightful things to say.
Yeah.
Got a little plotting at times for me.
Yeah, I thought it was a little long, whereas I didn't think On the Beach, as long as it was ever seen that long.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe that's just due to the same, there's not a ton of differentiation in the music. All that to say, still a fantastic track.
And he said before in interviews, he kind of just threw this song together in a nonsensical way. I did come across that in the research.
And now we'll move on to the next side with the song that I think is the most probably radio friendly on the record, Walk On.
And Trey, this is a broken record. It's just another one where he's talking about his cynical kind of nature, but that he just needs to walk on, move on.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing he can do about the critics or anyone else anyway, so he's got to just kind of go on with his life. This one's much more upbeat musically and instrumentally, but it's not upbeat lyrically.
No, exactly. A great rocking tune.
Yeah, I love this song.
Love the guitar work with Neil and also Ben Keith on slide guitar. Fantastic. This is also one of my favorites, and it again has one of my favorite lines. Some get stoned, some get strange, but sooner or later it all gets real. Ain't that? That's true. That's one of my favorite, might be my favorite line on this record. But fantastic tune, which is a lot different than what we just had on the first side with all the longer and more mellow tunes. So good on Neil for Walk On, and then that moves us to the next track.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't hear any thunder or anything, but See the Sky About to Rain. That is our next track. We got Levon Helm in here on drums. It had been covered by the Byrds a year earlier. Starts with the chorus, Trey. It's very short lyrically. It's from his Harvest time, and I think you can totally tell that it fits in with that Harvest vibe. It's also chill, not a bad tune.
No, we have Neil on the whirly piano here,
Yes.
which gave it a bit of a dreamy like aesthetic and atmosphere, which differentiated it a bit from the more dreary tunes on this record. Definitely felt like an authentic Neil cut, and even though he was short on words, what he had to say was quite meaningful.
I agree. Now David Crosby is going to stop by for Revolution Blues.
Yeah, we got a lot of blues on this.
We do, man. We
on
do.
this record. We got the Ambulance Blues. Now we got the Revolution Blues. And
So Crosby's on the rhythm guitar, Rick Danko's on the bass, Helms back here for the drums. Trey, this was inspired by Charles Manson, who Neil had met in his Topanga Canyon days. It's a harrowing comment on the murders Manson committed in his cult in 1969. There's a guard dog mentioned, and that is actually supposedly an old man that was working at this ranch that Manson ended up killing. Interesting subject, to say the least. I guess that kind of goes without saying.
Absolutely. This is one of my favorites on the record.
It was mine,
Loved,
too.
It both lyrically and musically.
I agree.
Neil here especially was a bit manic, I think, in his
I thought
delivery of vocals.
That's exactly what you need to do on these songs. It drives me nuts when artists sing songs exactly the same way. If this is about love and you're heartbroken, let me hear the pain in your voice.
Yeah.
If it's about a mass murder,
Exactly.
let me hear you get a little bit manic. And I thought he did a great job.
Oh
with
yeah,
that.
and especially the punch from the bass here from Danko really stood out as well, and gave it a little bit of a different sonic flair on this record here. So great job on Neil on this one, and we only have 2 more tracks left.
We do. We're going to go For the Turnstiles, where Neil actually plays a banjo. This also has a harmony vocal from Ben Keith, and it's arranged in a way like lyrically, it's not about what it seems like it's about. It's about musical artists going out on tour.
Yeah, a bunch of different metaphors kind of throughout
Exactly.
this tune. My favorite would be the Ben Keith harmonies here. For me, I think this could have fit on Harvest with the country folk.
I did too. It was a little out of place on this. It's not a bad song. It just is like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I find it a bit dull for me personally. It would be my least favorite
That is mine as
cut
well.
on this record, but I do appreciate the fact that he did switch it up, and you still have a lot of different styles on this, even if a lot of the themes are kind of the same throughout the record.
Exactly. And now we're going to finish this off with Vampire Blues, which is quite simply a cynical attack on the oil industry. Guitars and drums and organ are prominent, especially compared to that last song.
And it definitely had a blues, not only feel to it musically, but also the songwriting structure where he repeated many times the same lyric and then kind of ended each verse with a little differentiation of that lyric. So I enjoyed it for that. I thought it was quite solid, and the organ at times gave me a little Dracula vibes, a little vampire blues.
That's a good, because maybe that's what they were going for. I didn't even pick up and like connect that. For me, it was okay. I mean, I didn't love it. I thought the lyrics were fire, but a lot of times they are with Neil. So I thought that was a pretty good way to end the album, at least from his viewpoint. That was going to end the album. So it takes us to our favorite songs. For me, it's the title track, On the Beach.
That's one of mine.
Which starts side 1, and it's Walk On, which starts side 2. So those are my 2 favorites.
And
only 8 songs on here. We've talked all the time about how much we enjoy that because it's a fast
concise,
listen, and it's concise, man. So I enjoy that.
I'd also add Revolution Blues in there just for tackling the subject matter and just how Neil was delivering those vocals, man. And now we're gonna go to our overall score of the record. For me, this is one that I thought was better over time. On first listen, I wasn't crazy about it, but then the more I got into it, it's definitely with Neil. I think he does have something for everybody, and on this one, if you like the more kind of mellow tunes where introspection is kind of your cup of tea, this is probably going to be the record for you. And if you aren't a big fan of that, it probably won't be.
No, he's got plenty of other great stuff to offer.
Exactly. So for me, though, at the end of the day, I thought musically and lyrically, he was still in pretty top form for what we've heard. So I'm going to go an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. I'm going to be at a 7.5. Really good record. Not as good as the other stuff we've reviewed of his, in my opinion, but still really good. Really enjoyed it. And it's surprising to me that so many people don't like it, because there's still a lot of Neil fans that don't like this album in particular. I came across that a lot, but I thought it was a really good choice. So appreciate it, Carl.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know what you think of this record down in the comments below. We're going to be coming with some more Neil Young
Yes,
in
we are.
the upcoming months, and we'll be looking forward to that as we continue through his 70s period. And as always, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Happy listening, and we will see ya.